problem. That's why I was not taking class. But from now onward, I'm going to take the class regularly. Okay. So, if you can remember, the last class that I discussed with you was regarding measures of energy. And in that class, we discussed what are the different units which are used for expressing the energy of the food as well as energy required by the animal. Then what are the different system of energy that we apply for nutritional studies, like what amount of energy is present in the feed, or what energy or how much energy is required by the animal. Hope you can remember that last class. And in the beginning, we discussed, as this class is regarding measures of energy, so what is energy we should know. So energy is the capacity of performing any work. We all know it. The capability or capacity of doing work by any living organism is known as energy. Now, in nutritional point of view, if we are to correlate the energy, then we should go through in this way. So if we see the manifestation of life's process, it is nothing but work. Say a living organism continuously takes breath, there is continuous blood circulation, so these are nothing but work. Then the production that we get from livestock as well as poultry, that also involve work, or there's requirement of energy. So similarly in livestock as well as poultry, for growth as well as for different production like milk production, egg production, a considerable amount of energy is required or spent by the animal or bird.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes?
Sir, someone is waiting.
Is the slide visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So for manifestation of life process as well as for production and growth, the animal or bird require energy. So therefore we must know what this energy is and where from the livestock and bird gets energy. Now, including human being, the livestock as well as bird get energy from the food that we consume or the animal or bird consume. Now, we know food is composed of nutrients. Say protein, carbohydrate, fat, mineral and vitamins are there in the food. Now, out of these different component of food, the animal and bird get required energy to perform any work, and those nutrients are protein, carbohydrate and fat. So we as well as animal or bird do not get energy from mineral and vitamin, you remember. Then comes in what unit and by what method we can determine the energy that is present in the food. So for this we use one instrument, that is Bohm calorimeter. So there in the instrument Bohm calorimeter we used to burn or we used to oxidize a measured amount of food. And during that burning amount of heat is generated that is measured in terms of calories. So the unit that is used for measuring energy present in the food is calorie. Then there are different expression of calories: small calorie, kilocalorie, megacalorie. So one small calorie is, so we can define in this way: one small calorie is the amount of heat that is required to increase or raise the temperature of 1 gram of water from 14.5 to 15.5 degrees Celsius. So if you are asked what is mole calorie, you should be able to define in this way. Then kilocalorie, so it is 1 kilocalorie is the amount of heat required to raise the temperature of 1 kg of water by 1 degree Celsius. Not from 14.5 to 15.5, from any minimum temperature. So it means to increase by 1 degree Celsius for 1 kg water, it is kilocalorie. And megacalorie, it is say 1000 kilocalorie is equivalent to 1 megacalorie. Now, another unit that is used for expressing energy is Joule. Nowadays, the International Union of Physiological Sciences has adopted Joule as the unit of energy. Means internationally, nowadays Joule is used. But still we are using calorie also. So we should know what is the relation between calorie and Joule. We used to ask the students to give the amount of 1 calorie equivalent to how much Joule. It is 4.184 Joule. You should know. Now let us see how we can partition the food energy that is present in the food. After consumption, what happens in the metabolism? So before I should go to the lower part of this, next part of this slide, let me explain to you. Say whatever food we consume or say an animal consumes, after consumption, the whole amount of food is not digested. Some amount of food get out of the system without being utilized as feces. You know it, isn't it? Am I right?
Yes,
Are you
sir.
hearing? Okay. Now, in the feces, if we analyze, the feces also will give some amount of heat if we burn or oxidize in the Bohm calorimeter. Means in the feces there is losses of energy too. So when we consider the losses of energy through feces and we subtract that energy from the gross energy present in the food that the animal we consume, that gives us digestible energy. Then if we go further to the metabolism of say energy, there are losses of energy other than feces through urine and gases. So if we consider along with losses of energy through feces, urine and gases, we get metabolizable energy. Then if we go further in the depth of the energy metabolism, then we will find that there is another loss of energy that occurs at cellular metabolism, which is known as heat increment. So if we consider all the losses incurred through feces, urine, gases, and heat increment, then we arrive at net energy. So that, let me tell you, first what is gross energy? The energy value of the feed for livestock and poultry, excuse me, hello, PC, have you come today? Why are you not coming? Okay. When you can? Oh, when you can? Okay, when you can come? When will you come? Okay. Okay. Oh yes. Okay, take care. Okay, I'll call you later on. Sorry, I had to attend one and call. So the energy value of the food may be considered into 4 heads. They are gross energy, digestible energy, metabolizable energy, and net energy. So under this 4 heading, we can discuss the energy, what happened to the energy that is present in the feed. The first, gross energy. It is the total energy that is present in the food that we consume or the animal or bird consume. The gross energy of food, the quantity of heat resulting from the complete oxidation of unit weight of a feed is known as the gross energy or heat of combustion of that feed. So sometimes this gross energy is also termed as heat of combustion. Are you still seeing the slide?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Okay. So gross energy, the other name is heat of combustion, you remember. Now when the animal consume the food, actually the animal, we can say, consume the gross energy. So the animal obtains energy from the chemical energy of food. The quantity of chemical energy present in a feed is measured by converting it into heat energy in the Bohm calorimeter and determining the heat produced. This conversion is carried out by oxidation of the feed, that is burning the feed in the Bohm calorimeter. Now, sometimes we used to ask the students in what form the energy is present in the food. It is present as chemical energy. And once we, burn it or oxidize it, that chemical energy is transformed to heat energy. And by that heat energy generated from the chemical energy, we determine how much energy is present in the feed. So that you remember. Now, Bohm calorimeter is used to determine the gross energy content of food. You know it. Now, according to the losses of energy that occurs from the food that we consume or the animal or bird consume, we can arrive or get DE, that is digestible energy, ME, metabolizable energy, and NE. So that I'm showing you. Today I am going little bit fast because already I have discussed that part in last class. Now, digestible energy, it is the difference between gross energy of feed that an animal has consumed minus gross energy of feces. After consumption of that feed, whatever amount of feces will be voided, and in that feces, whatever energy, that is gross energy, is present in the feces, that difference gives us digestible energy. So here explanation has been given. Say all the gross energy that is present in food is not utilized in the animal body. Already I have discussed a little bit here. Whatever food we consume, it is not 100% digested because food is not digested completely. Some amount of gross energy of food is excreted in the feces. The amount of energy that is excreted in the feces when subtracted from gross energy of the food that a particular animal has consumed gives the digestible energy of that food. Then metabolizable energy. Now, along with feces, if we consider the losses of gross energy in urine and gases, especially in methane, in case of say ruminant animal, then we get metabolizable energy of food. So the explanation of metabolizable energy is in this way. So in addition to the loss of gross energy in the feces, gross energy of food is also lost through urine and due to rumen fermentation, especially in ruminant. So when the losses of gross energy of food in urine, feces, and combustible gases are subtracted from the gross energy intake, means from the food that the animal has consumed, we arrive in metabolizable energy of food. And mathematically, it is in this way. Metabolizable energy of food is difference between gross energy in food minus total gross energy losses through feces, urine, and gases. So here in metabolizable energy estimation, additional losses of energy is considered through feces and not feces, urine and gases. That you remember. Now, if we see how much gross energy is lost in methane production and how much total gross energy lost, or how we can calculate the ME from DE, these 2 points you should be able to remember or you should know. Normally, around 8% of gross energy intake that is consumed from food is lost through the methane production in case of ruminants. Sometimes we ask to the students, so how much gross energy lost occurs through methane production? It is 8%. Then, in order to calculate ME value from DE value, we can consider this point. So, metabolizable energy of food can be calculated from the digestible energy of the food by multiplying with 0.82. Now, this 0.82 means roughly around 18% of the digestible energy is lost through urine and methane. That's why it is multiplied by 0.82. Means 82% divided by 100, 0.82. Is it clear to you why it is multiplied by 0.82?
No, sir.
No. You see, here it is said that roughly 18% digestible energy is lost through urine and methane. So if 18% is lost, so how much remain? 82%. 100 minus 18. Now 82% means 0.82. Isn't?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's why from DE, if we are to roughly calculate ME, we can multiply the DE value by 0.82. Now, after DE, yes?
So the slides still stuck on the previous one.
Previous one means not showing this one.
No, 0.82, it's not on, means the gross energy of foods. It's still.
Now?
No, sir. Or I don't know. It is.
This NE now is showing or not? Net energy?
No, sir. मेरा
in
नहीं
that case,
देखा पता नहीं.
Okay.
ये काम तेरा नेट है.
Sir.
Yes?
I think there's problem with my net, sir. I think others can see. Yes.
Okay, no problem.
Sorry, sir.
So, metabolizable energy of food, mathematically we can calculate in this way, multiplying digestible energy of the food with 0.82. Next, net energy. The net energy concept was given by the scientist Ormsby in 1921. So, sometime we ask the students, name the person associated with net energy. It is Ormsby. Now, this net energy, if we are to explain, it will be like this. Net energy is the portion of the gross energy of food that is available to the animal for growth, that is tissue gain, milk production, work, and maintenance. Okay? Net energy can be defined mathematically as gross energy of the food minus the losses of energy in feces, urine, combustible gases, especially methane, and heat increment. So in net energy, other than losses of energy in feces, urine, and gases, another loss, heat increment, is considered. Now we are going to see what is heat increment and what are the factors responsible for heat increment. Now I am going to the next slide. Mathematically, net energy is in this way: gross energy of food minus gross energy in feces plus gross energy in urine, gross energy in gases, that is especially methane, and heat increment. Now, what is heat increment? So, heat increment is the increase in heat production following consumption of food when the animal is in a thermoneutral environment. So, later on I am going to discuss you what is thermoneutral environment. For time being, you just try to know that heat increment is the increase in heat production following consumption of food when the animal is in a thermoneutral environment. Means, after keeping an animal in a thermoneutral environment, suppose we are giving feed to the animal, then there will be increase in heat production from the body. And that amount of increase in heat production is known as heat increment. Now, this heat increment is having another term in nutrition, that is specific dynamic effect of food. So sometimes you may get question like define specific dynamic effect of feed. In that case, you should not get confused. It is actually asking to you to write about the heat increment. So the synonym of heat increment you should be able to remember. It is specific dynamic effect of food. Now question comes, where from this heat increment results? So there are different factors. So heat increment is due to generally two factors: heat of fermentation, abbreviation HF, and heat of nutrient metabolism, HNM. So due to these two factors, heat increment arises. Now heat of fermentation is the heat produced in the animal body after consumption of food in the digestive tract as a result of microbial action. Then heat of nutrient metabolism is the heat produced in intermediary metabolism, means at cellular level, from absorbed nutrients. So these two factors and their explanation you should be able to remember. So what are the factors responsible for heat increment? One is heat of fermentation, the other one is heat of nutrient metabolism. Now heat of fermentation is the heat produced in the GIT in the animal after consumption of food and which results due to microbial activity. Then heat of nutrient metabolism is the production of heat in intermediary metabolism of absorbed nutrients. Up to this, is it clear to you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now this heat increment that generates after consumption of food, whether it is having any utility or not, that sometimes you may be asked, is it beneficial to the animal or not? So for that explanation, this is the point. The energy of heat increment is actually wasted from the animal body, except when the temperature of the environment is below the critical temperature, when it is used to keep the body warm by the animal. So here you have got another term, critical temperature, that also you are going to get in the subsequent slide. So what is thermonuclear environment, what is critical temperature, you are going to get in the next, few slides. So here you have come to know that generally the heat increment is a loss from the animal. Means for the animal from the food, there is no utility except when the environmental temperature is below the critical temperature for the animal. So that time means when the environmental temperature is generally cold, below critical temperature means it is colder. So the animal may use that heat increment for keeping the body warm. So that is the only advantage of heat increment, otherwise it is a loss. Now here I am showing you the schematic representation of partitioning of the gross energy that an animal has consumed, and after consumption what are the losses incurred, and with those losses how we can arrive in different type of energy, say DE, ME and NE. So this you please go through. Generally we ask the students to give schematic representation of partitioning the gross energy of feed in the animal as well as bird. So you will have to write in this way, schematically. First, gross energy of feed, it is the total energy that the animal or bird has consumed. So after consumption, there will be some gross energy loss in feces. So when this gross energy loss in feces is subtracted from gross energy of feed, we arrive in digestible energy of feed. Hope it is clear to you with this schematic diagram. Then from digestible energy, if we consider another losses in urine and gases, we arrive in metabolizable energy. Means in metabolizable energy, losses considered are gross energy losses in feces, urine, and gases. Then metabolism energy. From this, if we consider losses in heat increment, we arrive in net energy. Hope schematically it is understandable to you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, this DE, ME, NE, all these systems are used for expressing the energy required by the animal as well as energy metabolism. But any system we are not using in India. In developed country they may use, but we are using DE and ME. So the DE system is used in India as well as in foreign countries for the energy requirement of pig, especially. And this ME energy system is used in India as well as in foreign countries for the energy requirement of poultry and pig. You remember, for poultry, DE system is not used because for DE system, we need to consider losses of energy only through feces. But in case of poultry, as there is excretion of feces and urine together from the same opening, that is cloaca, so it is difficult to separate the feces from urine. That's why the losses of energy through feces, urine is considered. So we are bound to consider ME system. Is it clear to you?
Yes, sir.
Student? So sometimes we ask why it is advisable or easier to consider ME system in poultry. In that question, your answer should be like this. Say, as both feces and urine are excreted from the same opening, that is cloaca, it is not possible to separate feces and urine. That's why we go for considering ME. Is it clear now? Please let me know. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Now, as I said in earlier slide, what is thermoneutral environment, that term you have got, and what is critical temperature. Now, to know this critical temperature and thermoneutral environment, explanation you please go through it. So, physical regulation, chemical regulation of body temperature, and critical temperature. This is the heading. This point I'm reading to you. So when the environmental temperature is above the body temperature, if you can relate it with yourself. Suppose the environmental temperature is higher than our body temperature. In that case, what happened? The constancy of body temperature is maintained by physical regulation. You see, our body temperature needs to be constant and it should be maintained, whether it is lower environmental temperature or higher environmental temperature. So in this particular point, we are discussing about the environmental temperature that is higher than our body temperature. So in that situation, our body temperature is maintained by physical regulation. And how does physical regulation maintain our body temperature? That is by perspiration mechanism. So in physical regulation, the mechanism used is perspiration. Now, what happened in this perspiration mechanism? Here, dilation of capillaries takes place. Means, whatever capillaries are there under our skin, there is dilation. Means, the the canal get capillary become enlarged and results in dissipation of body heat. And how this dissipation of body heat occurs? In such cases, heat escapes by radiation. By radiation means there will be profuse sweating. The pores of skin are opened up so as to facilitate the escape of heat by evaporation. Means at high environmental temperature, there is dilation of capillaries. Then the pores of skin are opened up, so sweat can come out of our skin. Now, with profuse sweating, the body heat also comes out. And from the sweat, the heat gets precipitated to the environment. That is evaporation. Now, up to this, the point is clear to you? Students?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now let us see what happens when the environmental temperature is lower than body temperature. Similarly, when the environmental temperature is low, especially in winter, say now in northern India, yeah, it is very cold. Okay, so in that cold environment, what happens? Forcible form of muscular activity is brought into action, what is known as shivering. So when we feel severe cold, our muscles start shivering. Probably many of you have experienced it. In very colder night, we used to shiver when we feel too much cold. So there is involuntary muscular movement. It is contraction. Now, here in shivering, there is muscular activity. Am I right? Shivering takes place due to contraction of skeletal muscle. Now we know since work produces heat, the involuntary form of muscular activity in shivering also produces heat, and that heat is produced at the expense of muscular glycogen. So this is known as the chemical regulation, because here the chemical glycogen that is present in the muscle is utilized. Means there is oxidation during shivering, and during that oxidation of glycogen there is release of some amount of heat. So by that way our body tries to maintain our body temperature. So here in the maintenance of our body temperature, as chemical glycogen has come, this is known as chemical regulation. So here you have got two forms of regulation in our body to maintain our body temperature at constant point. One is physical regulation and the other one is chemical regulation. In chemical regulation, it takes place during cold environment where there is involuntary muscular contraction, especially skeletal muscle, and which is known as shivering. And during this shivering, there is breakdown of muscle glycogen, and that gives us some amount of heat. And by that heat, our body tries to maintain the body temperature. This is chemical regulation. Now, this physical regulation and chemical regulation, is it clear to you now?
Yes,
Then
sir.
let me know. Okay. Now from these 2 points, we can go for explaining what is critical temperature. The temperature at which the oxidation of body substances such as glycogen is brought into play to maintain body temperature is called the critical temperature. Means there is a minimum temperature below which the chemical regulation comes into play to maintain our body temperature. So that minimum temperature of the environment is known as critical temperature, below which temperature chemical regulation comes into play to maintain our body temperature. You please go through this point. What is critical temperature? Hope you have understood what is critical temperature.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Now, in connection with critical temperature, now we can define what is thermoneutral environment. The environment at which neither physical regulation nor chemical regulation is required by a living organism to maintain body temperature is known as thermoneutral environment. Now, probably you will be able to define what is thermoneutral environment. Again, you go to the point. What is thermoneutral environment? Try to understand. Have you understood what is thermoneutral environment?
Yes, sir.
Students? So it is the environmental temperature, okay, at which neither physical regulation is required by the animal nor chemical regulation is required by the animal to maintain constant body temperature, and that environment is thermoneutral environment. Now beyond that minimum temperature, if it increases, then physical regulation will come into play, and if the temperature goes below that minimum temperature, then chemical regulation will come into play to maintain our body temperature. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay or not?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, generally, when we keep an animal in thermoneutral environment, say we try to keep the animal at around 25 degrees Celsius. You remember, at around what temperature the thermoneutral environment can be achieved? At around 25 degrees Celsius. Okay? You remember? Now, other than this DE system, ME system, and NE system, there is another system of expressing energy, that is total digestible nutrient, TDN. And little bit I discussed in practical, probably, if you remember. In practical, I discussed this TDN. Can you recall?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that again I am going to discuss little bit. This is also one system of expressing energy that is present in the food as well as required by the animal. Now this total digestible energy is a measure of apparent digestible energy of food, and it is expressed in units of weight or percent rather than in energy weight. It is calorie. So here the difference of TDN with DE and ME is in the expression. We express it as unit weight, either gram or kilogram, or as percent. But other systems of energy are used in calorie or joule. Now, if we see, so this TDN system was the most widely used expression of energy system in the last 20th century. And for determining the TDN of food, we need to determine two factor or two component, that is digestibility coefficient and digestible nutrients of food. So this digestibility coefficient and digestible nutrients also I discussed while we were discussing about TDN in practical. So let us see what this digestibility coefficient. So digestibility coefficient of nutrients we can express in this way: the amount of nutrient intake that is consumed from food by an animal which is not excreted in the feces is considered to be digested by the animals. Means whatever amount of nutrient has consumed by a particular animal, the whole nutrient is not going to get utilized. Some will go out from the body in the form of feces. Now the difference between intake of nutrient and outgo of nutrient in feces is known as amount of nutrient digested. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now this amount of digested nutrient, if we express as percentage of nutrient intake, then it is known as digestibility coefficient. And mathematically it will be like this. Say percent digestibility coefficient of a particular nutrient. Amount of nutrient intake from food minus amount of nutrient outgoing feces, then amount of nutrient intake from food multiplied by 100. Students, here I am going to stop for today because there is a meeting in this conference hall. Actually, I was taking the class from conference hall. So I will start from the point where today I am going to stop. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you for attending the class.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.